Hello everyone, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. My name is Pia Fenimore and I am a general pediatrician here at Lancaster Pediatrics Associates in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I also am Chief of Pediatrics for Lancaster General Hospital, and my most important title is that I am the mom to 2 teenage boys. So drawing on all of that experience, I was asked to create a talk that helps parents decide what is and what is not worth worrying about when it comes to raising their children. So for that reason, this talk is entitled Parenting. The first 30 years are the hardest, because we all know that once you're a parent, you're always a parent. So let's talk about what's worth worrying about and what is not. So it's the end of the marking period around here, and I decided that it's probably okay if our kids have report cards and parents could have report cards. So we're going to kind of keep it focused on getting a good parenting report card. So the first key to getting a good report card is to know, what are you being graded on? And there's lots of things that sometimes we think are important that maybe aren't. We're not being graded on our child's early acceptance to Harvard. We're not being graded on our ability to bake from scratch while working full-time. We're not being graded on our child's fashion sense or any of the things that sometimes we can all get bogged down by. We're going to be graded on the basics. So I think a good place to start is with this quote from Leonardo da Vinci. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Keep it simple, stay focused on the basics. That's the smart way to be a great parent. So I created #parent-goals, 8 things that we really need to stay focused on. 1, keep them alive. 2, feed them. 3, get a good night's rest. 4, exercise. 5, play with them. 6, discipline them. 7, don't let YouTube raise your kid. And finally, teach them how to be happy, the hardest one. So let's start with keeping them alive. We've been doing really well with that in the United States lately. If you look at this chart, you can see that the death rates for children ages 1 to 19 have steadily dropped in the last 30 years, thanks to many advances in both car seat safety, vaccines, and even learning the proper positioning for sleeping for babies. We really are seeing a lot of difference in terms of the long-term health, well-being, and keeping them alive. For example, the SIDS rate alone, the sudden infant death rate alone, dropped by 60% just by learning that we should put babies to sleep on their backs. Or even more exciting, the children's leukemia cure rate is up to about 97 or 98% these days, and we continue to make progress all the time. So when it comes to that first parenting objective or parenting goal, check, A+, we're doing great. The next one, eating. You need to feed your kids, right? And your kids know that you can't make them eat, so it's kind of a battle at times. Many parents might not realize this, but the old food pyramid that we all learned in health classes changed. There's a new food pyramid now that instead of being the horizontal slices is vertical slices, which what that means is just that the focus is more on a wide variety of foods representing all different types of food groups at every meal. The other new focus is on keeping things simple from a food ingredient standpoint and avoiding a lot of preservatives and dyes and colorings. The advice that a lot of pediatric nutritionists will give you is that if something has more than 6 ingredients in it, you probably ought to keep it away from your children. Because the body really only needs milk and water, and all other types of drinks, including juice, have a lot of calories and a lot of sugar, it's recommended that you only allow your child to drink milk and water unless you're giving them a special treat. So that also is a change in that we no longer recommend that kids drink juice. Skipping breakfast is never a good idea, and it's hard because kids have busy schedules. A lot of them like to sleep until the very last second, especially our teenagers. Many of them don't even feel hungry because their bodies are still waking up when it's time to eat breakfast. But breakfast can pretty much be anything as long as it has some protein and a little bit of carbs in it. It can be a granola bar, it can be a cup of chocolate milk. Breakfast really can be flexible these days, but you shouldn't skip it. More research every day is coming to light to show that we should allow our children to have some treats every now and then. Denying treats, including candy, cookies, cake, especially on special celebrations, has been shown to make kids want it more and to make kids obsessed with it. So it's a good idea to let your kids have treats and also to teach them what a portion or a size of a proper treat is. For example, ice cream, the portion for all of us is 1 scoop, which is hard because we all like our double scoop. But if you can learn that early on, you can very comfortably allow your kids to have treats. In the category of what you probably don't need to worry about is most children do not need to take vitamins. If they're eating a wide variety of foods and they're getting and they're hitting all the food groups with each meal, then they probably do not need any kind of supplementation, which is one less thing to think about. The exception to that is if you have a very, very picky eater. And I think a lot of parents spend time and energy and frustration worrying about their picky eaters. And they probably don't need to. So here's a few little tips about picky eaters. Number 1, it's genetic. You're hardwired that way. You come out that way as a picky eater. You're probably not going to change it, but they will outgrow it, kind of. Meaning as they get older and their frontal lobe matures and they become more likely to be able to think outside the box, which doesn't occur sometimes until they're teens for some kids, they will be able to override that inborn sense of wanting to limit their diet and start to venture out. Prior to that, you're probably going to just bang your head against the wall by trying to get a picky eater to be an adventurous eater. It's okay for them to eat the same thing all the time, and you just want to make sure that you're focused on hitting all the food groups, even if they eat the same thing all the time. Be reassured if they're growing and developing properly. That is the best marker for good nutrition. So if at annual checkups your pediatrician says, hey, weight and height are nice and balanced, the child grew the proper amount this year, then you can stop sweating about the picky eating so much. Watch the timing and size of drinks and snacks in between meals, because that often will fill kids up and then make them less likely to eat when you want them to. And finally, make sure that you're setting a good example because they're watching you. So if you're trying to get your child to eat vegetables and you're not eating your vegetables, that's probably not going to happen, because do what I say, not what I do, doesn't work so well for children. Sleep. Sleep is also a source of frustration for parents frequently. And there's some important things that we've learned about the way kids sleep, the quality of sleep that they get, and the amount of sleep that they get that sometimes can help to take away some of the frustration and help you to understand where you should be setting limits and spending your time and worries. There should be no screens in the bedroom. None. Not a TV, not a laptop, not a telephone. And that goes for everyone in the house. So if your teenager relies on their phone for an alarm, or if you rely on the phone for an alarm to wake you up, I recommend you go and get yourself a cheap alarm and leave your phone out of the room. Screens of all nature have been shown to interfere with sleep. They've been shown to be too attractive, too tempting for kids to wake up in the middle of the night and check their phone, check their laptop, things like that. So it's important to get all screens out of bedrooms. Second thing to think about when it comes to sleep is routine, and routine, and routine. Your body does best if you go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at the same time every morning. And I understand that type of rigidity doesn't work for most families, but it's a good idea to try to stick to it as much as you can. Meaning, if you let your child sleep in on weekends, limit it to just a little bit of catch up, not so much sleeping in that it could interfere with sleep that evening. Try to stick with the same bedtime, especially during the school week, so that the body starts to be programmed to calm down, slow down, and begin to fall asleep at the same time every night. Turn the thermostat down at night. I love those little timer things you can set on your thermostat to make it automatically go down, because it's been shown that if your bedroom is below 70 to 65 degrees, that you're likely to sleep better. It also has been shown that making it a little bit colder at night is less likely to allow the spread of viruses on surfaces and things of that nature. So there's a lot of health benefits to turning your thermostat down. Parents often ask me, when will my child not need a nap anymore? How will I know? And the first thing is, there's not an exact age, and every kid is different, but that usually occurs around age 4. And typically the signs that you see are that they have a lot of trouble going to sleep at night when they've napped during the day, that they don't want to nap, that they say, I'm not tired, and they want to stay up. But I encourage parents to still, even when your child gives up nap, to set a time every day for some quiet time, looking at books, coloring, things of that nature, because even if they don't need to sleep, their brain needs some downtime, and you probably do too. Sleep really matters, and sleep is worth your time and energy as a parent to make sure that your child is getting what they need. Sleep has been shown to contribute to health problems, to behavior problems, to mood problems, and it really is essential that your child is getting enough sleep. And if you're curious about how many hours or the recommended hours, there's the chart there on the side, so that you can look up your child's age and see what the recommended amount of hours per night is. And the final point I always try to tell parents is, every now and then sleep with your child. You know, maybe you're on vacation and you're all sharing a hotel room, or maybe you just do a sleepover one night and sleep in their room. But you learn a lot. You might learn that your child's an incredibly restless sleeper. You might find out that when the trash guy comes at 4 a.m., it really wakes you up. You might find out that their room gets very hot at night. Parents can learn a lot just by every now and then sleeping with their kid and just making sure that their sleep hygiene, as we say, is correct. So that's sleep. The next parent goal is exercise, which is something that is so good for all of us, but yet something that is often turfed or set aside when we get really busy. So the recommendation is that kids age 5 to 18 get 60 minutes per day of exercise. That, incidentally, is also the recommendation for adults. And it should be a combination of aerobic exercise, or what we refer to as cardio, as well as strengthening. And that doesn't mean that your 5-year-old needs to lift weights. In fact, we don't recommend that. Strengthening is things like climbing a tree, or pulling on things, or just sort of integrated muscle play. Outside is best for exercise. There's a lot of benefits to being in nature. There's a lot of benefits to your child in seeing a variety of terrain and working and playing in a variety of terrain. And I really always tell parents to be wary of organized exercise, meaning scheduled soccer or scheduled gymnastics classes, especially in kids that are younger. While these provide a lot of benefits in terms of instruction and being with their peers and working back and forth and taking turns, which is all wonderful, they often don't actually provide that much exercise. There's lots of studies that show that taught soccer kids, really their heart rate didn't even go up because they're just running for very brief times in between instruction and drills. The final thing I want to say about exercise is that we seem to be a nation right now of Powerades and Gatorades and multiple brands of exercise drinks, and none of that is really necessary for children unless they are really, really very working out in high heat or sweating a lot. Water is what you usually need when you're exercising, especially as a child.